Welcome to Buddha at the Gas Pump. My name is Rick Archer, and my guest this week is Siddhananda. Siddhananda lives in the Pacific Northwest, at least at the moment, and is a student of Guru Swamiji, whom I interviewed last August, and who Sarojini, whom I've interviewed twice, is also a student of, so she's sort of a fellow student. And she has had some significant shifts in recent weeks, which I've listened to her description of a little bit on YouTube. But we're going to start with sort of more historical perspective and talk about how she first became interested in spirituality and what she has been through over the years leading up to the present time. So welcome, and thank you for doing this.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Good. So how did you get started? I understand, I think some comment your guru made that, you've been a seeker since your teens or early 20s or something.
Well, I had many spiritual experiences since I was very young. But I can't say I really started seeking until after my son was born, when he was probably about 2 years old. Mm-hmm. And my goodness, now to try to trace back how long ago that was is going to be tricky here. But let's see, he's 19 now, so probably about 17 years ago when I got really serious with it. And prior to that, it was, I have to say, just a lot of phenomena. There was depression, anxiety, all sorts of things. And there was, that ache, that longing that was always there. But after there was just that pull that continued to always be there. And it was just, I just within my heart knew that once that timing was right, that things would really get going. But, and my motivation for beginning to meditate after my son was born was mostly because I didn't want to transmit all of my, pain and all of my history to him, so it was more just considering him, but I had no clue what I was in for. It was just, and I just started out, I have to say, just one of those that honestly I didn't know what a guru was. I had never read any non-dual texts up until then. Honestly, a Swami, none of those things, absolutely clueless, and, or so unimaginably so. But, so just one day it just hit me after, like I say, he was about 2, that just this great impulse hit me to meditate. And it was so strong. And I started out in a really weird way. I was very drawn to sitting in graveyards and cemeteries. So, whatever that was, just to sit there and to sit with what is death, and just, as a way to face my fears and things, I just figured I'd go to those. And I guess, again, it wasn't necessarily an intellectual thing. It was more of a pulling to just really start facing those deep down, darkest, fears and whatever was there, which I really didn't know. So I would sit there for hours in graveyards and things, and contemplate the death of the form and that kind of thing. Even in the dark, I'd take walks in the cemetery and that kind of thing. That was really my contemplation. And then I tried to, take it a little bit on that lighter end, hopefully picking it up from there. But I started reading, Thich Nhat Hanh, and for some reason I just was in a bookstore one day, and honestly I had never read any non-dual text before, but I did find a book by Krishnamurti, and I opened up, and some of his poetry really, really struck me. It just struck me so strongly, and then that I just sort of stayed with on one of those, okay, this sounds so good, that I just kind of would stay with that one thing. But then I started doing some chants that I saw in some of the Buddhist books, just random chants. And just meditated for hours. I'd cover my eyes up. These things, again, were more spontaneous. It wasn't that I necessarily read all these things. But, and then, I don't, and again, I can't remember the timeline totally, but a lot of odd things started happening. Like, You know, my body would start just moving and jerking and weird breath sounds and all sorts of odd things that I had absolutely no clue what it was. And really, really scared me, of course, because I was like, what in the world is this? And then, you know, my prayer was actually before was just to be useful for the world, to actually be used for, you know, the benefit of humanity. And again, I had no idea what that meant and, you know, what the journey that was about to open up by, you know, and it was a very sincere prayer and desire. You know, Kundalini just blew wide open, and I have to say it was really, really frightening. It bottomed me out. It debilitated me, honestly. It was just visions, voices, I mean, everything imaginable came forward. And yes, Pandora's box, big time.
Yeah. So you didn't have any formal training in meditation or anything. You just kind of winged it and you know, did what sort of felt appropriate, I suppose. And as you know, of course, you're not the first to have this idea of meditating in graveyards. I mean, you know,
Yes.
both Western and Eastern mystics and yogis and so on have contemplated death as a spiritual practice.
Yes. Yes. And I did read that afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, like I say, I was very drawn to that and pulled towards going through that process of, you know, okay, the body decays, and then what's the layers under that, and doing all of that. And I did read later that that was something that monks and yogis do, but it wasn't. Honestly, it was just a pull there that, you know, was never read about or anything, and who knows, maybe it was a leftover from another life. I mean, I really don't have any idea what that was about, but it's very, very potent and definitely effective because things got moving. So
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you know, here's another example of someone like Sarojini who hadn't really been thinking about all this business, and all of a sudden just felt some inspiration, and next thing that she knew, there was all this stuff going on, and now you too. It does make one think that perhaps there's some other life momentum that's been built up, and, you know, because I don't know, I haven't done any sort of scientific survey, but it seems to me that the average spiritual seeker, you know, doesn't just sort of go like a, you know, not out of hell from day one. They just sort of like, oh, I think I'll check this out. They read books, they do some practices, and they just kind of muddle along for years sometimes without anything really powerful happening. And you know, you're another example of someone who just, you know, seems to have taken off like a shot.
yes, I mean, you know, you do pick up where you left off. You know, these things carry over. And if that desire is there, that picks up again when the conditions are right and ripe. And you know, and that's understood now. But certainly at the time, it's just more like a pull that you cannot resist. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the way that I could say to put it. I mean, it wasn't even a choice necessarily. It was such a strong pull, like such a stronger current than, let's say, my regular mundane things that I was doing. It pulled stronger, and so it just, I mean, I almost honestly didn't have a choice. It just sort of draws you in that way, and again, being absolutely clueless what Kundalini was. I honestly, I really don't think I'd ever even read the word. Maybe in Krishnamurti, but that was later, and so, you know, to read about it, you know, I mean, to actually to have these things start happening when you're clueless is very, very frightening. And, you know, having a little boy to take care of, a little child, and it just, it was incredibly intense. I mean, some people may have a smoother ride, but I just can't say. I can only speak to here that it was, like I say, it was just from, not to say that, you know, some of this was churning, it was bubbling since I was a teenager for sure, but then it just, whoa, it just broke wide open. Yeah.
There's actually a passage about this in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna asked Arjuna asked Lord Krishna, well, what happens to someone who is a yogi and is on the spiritual path, but he dies without having attained liberation? And you know, Lord Krishna says, well, he rises to the world of the pure and illustrious and lives there for a long time, and then comes back and picks up the spiritual path from where he left off, basically. I mean, he says in so many words. And, you know, it could very well be that, many people speak of this as being an age where there's a quickening of spiritual development in the world, a kind of a mass awakening. It could very well be that a lot of people who, had already reached or developed a great degree of enlightenment are coming back now in order to sort of participate in this time.
It's hard to know. I mean, all of that could be, but like I say here, I mean, this journey is very much from darkness to light, and I have to say that if for some reason the soul was in a land of purity, it wasn't there when I came during this process. It was the pits of suffering, and that's all that one can say is, some momentum continued. It seemed like a force, and it'd be nice to know there was a break in between, but believe me, I wasn't feeling it then. So, yeah.
So you meant you feel like your life was, there's a lot of suffering before this?
Oh, yes. I mean, just nonstop. And with this coming on, with the Kundalini, it brings up all that's repressed, that's, within one's consciousness. And, you live on a certain, it's kind of like a tip of the iceberg, I suppose, is all you think that and then that iceberg gets revealed, the whole thing, and to the bottom of it. And it's very, very overwhelming. And like I say here, I had no clue. I had no one to talk to about it. I didn't have a teacher, and I didn't know what a guru was. I honestly, I would read about it, but it didn't strike as something that, it just didn't, for me, I just was clueless. I mean, that's the best way that I can put it, and just sort of going about this blind, and then whoosh, so.
Yeah. So what did you do when this intense Kundalini started to happen? And did you know what it was, or did you think you were going nuts or something?
I thought I was going nuts, yeah. There was a feeling in there that this was spiritual, and it was a cleansing, but it just floored me, and believe it or not, it was my mom who, when I was so ill and debilitated, said, maybe this is Kundalini.
Oh.
And of all things, I mean, my mom is not even one that would ever even know that. I don't know where that came from her, It's hysterical, because she's never, yeah, it really, and she always says, I was the one who brought that up first. It's like, so, but, and then I did begin to read a little bit more about that, and it did come into line with that, but it's so easy to have it be. It could be a mental illness. Like I say, I went to a psychiatrist. I was put on every psychiatric medication, and it just made it worse, and therapists, because I was really, very, very depressed and anxious, and just trying to survive, to be honest, with my regular stuff. So, because the biggest thing was so weird. Like I say, the Kriyas began, but verbalizations.
Kriyas meaning like body thrashing around and so on.
Mudras, and also speaking in tongues. All of it. When that just whoosh comes out, and then all your fears, and it's just very, very. When you have no clue about it, it really, and especially if you have a history of being, having some depression and trauma and things, it just brings all of that whoosh. So I have to say, it was just a powerful thing. And but so I kind of just went up and down and was able to get balanced here and there, and then it just kept, I'd go through periods where it just, I was floored by it, where I was debilitated, and honestly not even barely able to take care of my regular stuff and my son and everything. And the people I talk to about it, they say, oh, it's such a blessing, and I don't feel blessed right now, okay? I feel like I want to die, literally, suicidal. I can't go on, okay? This is too much. But that, like I say, be careful what you ask for, because that prayer was there, and when that sincere heart is there. But it's also a caution. These things are very potent. They're very real, and to go about it blind like that without guidance is not. I can tell you, no, don't do it. Go slowly and get stability.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I'm sure there are and have been instances of people going crazy, getting institutionalized, being committing suicide, and so on. When this stuff happens, if they don't know what's going on.
Yes, that's absolutely. I mean, it's in the text, the spiritual text. Well, it discusses that people can go crazy, and because it just blows that consciousness, and everything that's in there just rushes out like a stream, and things that you didn't even want to know were in there. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
But so this just that's what was taking place, and I was telling people about it, and people, oh, maybe you have epilepsy, maybe you have this, maybe there's a demon in your house, they just believe me, made me feel settled. Okay, I was like, well, thanks, I'm sorry I asked. It went away feeling worse, and I saw healers and things, and they would just do energy work on me. I would just be so ill after that. It would just. Or one of them, I forget, some chant he did, and my whole body was shaking, and I mean, it just, because you're just so sensitive to the energies. It just, when people are ungrounded themselves, you can really, it's not a good thing. So, believe me, I was desperate. I'm painting it actually in a good way. It just, but.
You mean it was more traumatic even than you were letting on? Huh.
Probably I could even express here.
How long did this go on?
This intensely about 5 years before meeting Guruji. Yeah.
Wow. That's a long time. So 5 years you're going through this. And are you married?
I am not now. I do have a child, that I, by myself for the most part. So.
Okay, so you weren't married even when this was all going on, like you didn't have some husband that was somehow patiently having to deal with it.
Oh, I mean, my son's dad was involved, and he's back and forth, and he knew I was, very ill, and he helped take care of him when I couldn't, and, but it was very traumatic for, my son, and, but we worked this out, but, yeah, and really there wasn't anyone that understood it, so most people just wanted, do therapy, and those are the things I did try, but, it didn't help. It's like, it just, for a short period of time, I'd get to the point where I could work and I'd be a little more level, and then something would just break. I mean, something would start breaking through again, and different phenomena, and it just would wipe me out.
Yeah. Was it at all controllable, or would it be like you'd be, in the supermarket and all of a sudden you'd start, jerking around and speaking in tongues or something?
Thank God it's, for some reason within myself, when I was able to go in public, I just breathed and was, able to keep that down, although I know some people do get into that. But, and around my son, it didn't go on. I just would breathe, and it seemed to relax. Happening with him.
Yeah. I went through a stage of this, and I was driving an ice cream truck. This was around 1970, and whenever I got settled, my body would start to jerk around and stuff. And so, like, if I came to a stop sign with the ice cream truck and sat there for a minute, I'd start to jerk. Yeah. Or I'd just be sitting alone in the living room of this house where I was staying, and my face would just go into these contortions and grimaces and all this weird stuff. And I just finished a long 1-month meditation course, and I knew what was happening. So I just kind of didn't fight it and just let it go on, and it kind of just stabilized and integrated after a while, after.
Oh, that's good. Well, that's Kriyas. I mean, that's definitely like a Kriya is what you're having.
Yeah.
This kind of thing here, like I say, it didn't end, and still Kriyas take place, so it's been years, but that definitely is, that's a taste of what it was like, and it's good that you're able to just relax with it. Wish I could have.
Yeah, I was sort of in the context of a spiritual movement and had a teacher and everything, and so I kind of knew what I was going through, and it didn't scare me. I sort of felt like, all right, this is cool. So at least something's happening,
But yes, some people get just, more than what they ever imagined, which was here. But
yeah.
Yeah.
So did it? Was Guru Swamiji your first teacher or your only teacher?
My only teacher.
How did you discover her?
Well, it was during another one of the breakdowns of, just the Kriyas and illness. And You know, it was very thin. I mean, I was really, really a wreck.
So you couldn't
But
eat?
barely.
Yeah. And you were physically ill? I mean, disease type
Yeah.
ill, or just?
Dry heaves, and with that, the phenomena, colors, visions, speaking in tongues, kriyas, you know, that would go on 24/7. Fear that would just wave. I mean, just, like I say, everything imaginable, you know, echoing voices, just really, I mean, you could, you know, going to a therapist, they might think you're psychotic. That's the way it felt. I mean, I was definitely on the verge of feeling as if I was psychotic or something. But with, you know, again, it was in another period where there was a breakdown like that, and after my mom had mentioned Kundalini, I started doing a little bit of research on it. And I did go to the computer and just typed it in one evening. And what initially popped up right away was Guru Swamiji, you know, and then her name was Ganga Karmakar. And I went into that, and that was the first thing that came up. You know, again, strange. I didn't go looking for it or anything, you know. And went into it, and again, the first post, I didn't read anything, but what just stood out was, you know, I've completed the Kundalini process, and I'm here to help others through the journey. That was it. That's all I saw. That was like the light, and I did email her and just said a few things. And again, my emails were just ridiculous. They were so desperate. I could barely write. It was just a couple of things. I'm dying. I'm seeing colors. Help. You know, it's just like, you know, and I didn't know if she would get back to me or anything like that. But I did check the mail. She got right back, and her, you know, replies were so settling and so reassuring, and just obviously coming from a place, you know, of a knowing, and you know, it was just so obvious that the heart was feeling that, the head was doing I don't know what, but there was that connection and just that immediate settling. And then, you know, we corresponded for a while, and I would let her know the symptoms, and she's like, be careful what you ask for, and you know, because that's exactly what she asked for. And I was like, yeah, I thought about that, but you know, it's done with what to do now. That's truly still, you know, I can't take that away. It's there, and that's just the heart of how, you know, what the desire was. But and then after a little bit of correspondence, you know, she I don't think she was in India then, and she said, well, where do you live? Because I could come and see you. And she said, my daughter lives in Seattle on Capitol Hill, and I'm going to go there and stay. And she was in India then, you know, and I said, well, that's exactly where I live.
On Capitol Hill.
Yeah.
Ah, right.
Exactly. I mean, so that was all just, you know, one of those things. And so she came to me. It was just, you know, again, another amazing thing. So,
That's great.
yeah.
Muhammad came to the mountain or something.
Yeah.
Huh.
Exactly. And so, which was actually amazing, because I really wasn't in a state to travel, and you know, just the way that worked out. You know, she was like, oh my gosh, you know, of all places, her being in India, and it's like in the right exact spot where I was. So,
Yeah. Doesn't sound like an accident.
no, I would say.
And so, when was this, just to get a time frame?
Probably up to 10 years ago now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Boy, so she's had a website and all that for a long time.
Yes. Now, this was soon after she completed. It might have been about a year after. I don't know. But that's when she just got it started. So it was very new. And, you know, she was, after she, you know, reached enlightenment, she was putting it out there just to help others, because she knows how difficult this journey can be.
Yeah.
And, you know, she said when she read my mail, she just wanted to just help as you know, quickly as possible, because she could just feel like, oh my God, she knew what I was going through with it. So
Yeah. So when she got to Seattle and you started meeting with her, did she do things or help you in such a way that the whole thing subsided fairly quickly, or was it more like it still kept going on, but at least you had somebody to hold your hand?
Well, she did. You know, I met her at Travelers here in Seattle, and which is a tea house, Indian tea house here in Seattle. And I was very ill at the time, so I couldn't sit up for very long and chat with her. I mean, she looked at me and said, "God, you look like you're just, from a concentration camp or something."
Wow.
She just, I could just talk with her for a little while. But, just immediately when I started talking with her, I just started to settle. It was like, oh, because she was explaining what it was and what she went through and what the purpose of it is and what the final conclusion is, and that it was worth every minute of it to her. And she went through so much suffering for years and years. And, to hear her say that in itself just really helped me to settle down. But it did take probably about a month or so before I could start getting back to work. And I've been able to work, totally and since then. And, things stapled out in that way. But in terms of the phenomena going away, no, that continued. And, but there was more of, much more stability, much more, less fear. And things really begin to move. They begin to shift immediately. The phenomena changed. There was things opened up and expanded and cleared out and began to grow and bloom. And I don't want to make it easy, though, in any way whatsoever, because it was still very, very much of a difficult journey. But there was that stability there, which immediately and helped just beyond words. I mean, honestly, I really don't know where my life would be without it. I'll be quite honest. That's the shape I was in. So, it's just been, one of the best blessings that you can't even say, no words can say. So
There's that saying, when the student is ready, the master appears,
Seems to be true, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. To my understanding, it seems like there might have been two things going on. One is you had that sort of intellectual reassurance, and I think without that, there can be this sort of battle going on inside, which makes the situation much worse than it. There's a sort of a friction or a conflict that adds ghee to the fire, of what's going on. And so she's able to kind of reassure you and settle you down on the intellectual level. And then there must have also been a resonance in terms of, soul to soul, heart to heart, consciousness to consciousness, Shakti to, kind of resonance, which must have helped to sort of balance your energies. Would you agree with both those things? Or?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I mean, just that the guru is in still mind and just, in the transmission, really, it cuts through that intellect and it just goes to the heart, and absolutely things, begin to shift immediately. And really, there's the words and the pointings of the guru are one thing, but the greatest gift is the transmission that comes from that one that rests in pure consciousness. And really, there was so much confusion in here. I mean, I really didn't know what the end of the journey was. I mean, that the individual self dissolves. Honestly, none of that made any sense, or, until meeting Guruji, what the goal is to still the mind. Okay, I mean, you can read it, but honestly, until it's actually, one begins to experience it and enter into the heart and the teachings and the practices, then it's understood, but what is being pointed to. I mean, you can again read it on your own and things, but without a guru, you can get very confused. Even though the heart may be in the right place, it just gets all muddled up. So this just helped to cut through and clarify and open up the space so that that path can be walked. You have to walk it yourself, but that guru, is that guiding light. So.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like a traffic cop who can sort of see the whole flow of the traffic, and you're kind of stuck down there among the cars. You can't quite see where you're going, but the guru can sort of see the whole road and think, all right, well, you better go this way. And
Hey, don't stop here, don't rest here, don't take that yoga, don't get in that ditch.
Yeah.
Which we all did in those ditches, and thank God for Guru, because they get you up and out of them again. One has to walk it themselves. It's not. in the journey, and to follow, when things fall away, I mean, one has to enter into that alone.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting you should say that. There's sort of a juxtaposition here, or a paradox, because some people object to the notion of a guru because they sort of feel like they'll be relinquishing their autonomy, their control, their own willpower, and so on, and just having somebody run them like a puppet. But what you're saying is that it really is a do-it-yourself job. I mean, you have to sort of walk your own road, but the guru can be a catalyst or an aid or a guide.
That's exactly it. Absolutely, they're not here. I mean, one might say to hold your hand, but honestly, that isn't it. Really, it's just to point the way, and you can go there or not. But certainly, coming under the guidance of a guru, the mind begins to dissolve and shift by being in the presence of that one, and that's the gift that a lot of I guess ones that have not surrendered to a guru may not get that experience, so they can have a lot of ideas about it. But surrender is letting go of those ideas. And here there wasn't a choice, and possibly I would have never came to a guru if that suffering wasn't there. And that's, again, the left-handed blessing of it. There was so much suffering, I didn't have a choice. I would have otherwise never sought out a guru if the mind was stable within its own mundane, regular stuff that people deal with, and I was able to function. It's unlikely here that I just wouldn't have gotten it. I just wouldn't have. But I got it because that suffering made me so desperate. It's just true. I just didn't have a choice in it. And then by beginning to experience the stability that began to come and how my life was totally opened up and honestly transformed. And I want to say within the first meeting with Guruji, the journey's been long, but and with that, of course, my son's happier and so many things flowed from there. But I really just wanted out of suffering too, at all cost. Because, that's the other thing. If that wasn't there, I don't know if that desire would have really. So, we get what's, what we're ripe for, I guess. And if one doesn't want a guru, then that's not time for that now, and that's okay. It's just. I do have to say, without one, and honestly, you're screwed. Let me say that myself.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some that do it, they say maybe without, but I mean, those ones must have some guru in another time, or like say with Ramana, there was a Arunachala, a vision of pure consciousness that's there, that's breaking down that. Because you're not going to know until it's experienced. I mean, prior to that, you might have all these thoughts and fantasies, but honest to God, until it's experienced, that's a whole nother game. That's a whole nother, and it just breaks you down, it just breaks that mind down. It's just, and then it's like, oh, you never knew it until it's experienced.
Yeah, I think someone like Ramana is the exception, and he was living in a culture in which this sort of knowledge was much more prevalent.
Yeah.
It was in the air there. Whereas in your case, who knew? I mean, you were going to experts, you were going to psychiatrists and so on, and they didn't have a clue what was going on with you. So,
But no, worse.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you said, because. As long as one sort of feels that one can do for oneself, then there isn't the incentive to get a guru or to get a teacher. It's like the Gita again. At a certain point in the Gita, Arjuna was he had his own opinions about what he was going to do and what he wasn't going to do and so on. But at a certain point, he just kind of shifted and realized that he didn't know what to do. And at that point, he submitted to Krishna. He said, "All right, I'm your disciple. Teach me, because I don't know."
That's the point. Now, that's the point when you begin to be ripe for that teacher will come. When one says, I don't know, please help me. I'm lost in this confusion, this mess, this suffering. I want out more than anything. I'll do it at all costs. I don't know, help. And that was prayer. And really that then one can really be open to surrender, which means letting go of your will. And, I know people have so much fear that it's a controlling thing, and that's so not it. With a true guru, I'm again, there's so many ones that have taken advantage out there, and that you should be aware of that. Definitely, and there's, red flags that, to look for. But, here, like I say, I mean, the main thing is do you feel peace in their presence? Is there a transformation? Is there shifting? Is there settling? Is there movement? Is there growth? And here that was experienced immediately. And so, is that when living with integrity, or their words matching their lives? And that's a hard thing, so that can't even be described in words. But that's what took place here. Like I say, I had no clue about it, and you get the right guru, and the one, if you really want to break free to the end, then you're going to find a guru that has done that themselves. If you want to stay in phenomena and you want to do all the cities and you want the powers, and that's the guru you'll find. Honestly, you're going to find what you're seeking, and it's sincerely seeking.
Yeah, it's good. Those are good points. I mean, we've had so horrific examples in our lifetimes of very corrupt teachers. I mean, there's Jonestown or Heaven's Gate, to take extreme examples, but it's injected a sort of a fear into the national consciousness about teachers. Or powerful figures, charismatic people who take over their students' lives and ruin them. But it's good to remind people and for people to know that you can't paint them all with the same brush, and that there are genuine teachers out there, sincere teachers, and it would be advantageous to associate with them if you feel so inclined.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, because people can get so disheartened and just turn their backs on it, and that does them a disservice, because it is out there, and to keep your heart open in that way and not shut down, and it's there. Yeah. I mean, even if your heart is there in a sincere way, if you read a book like Raman or something, things are going to begin to open, and then things will begin to move forward, and the right circumstances will begin to emerge. So it's just having that trust and faith. That doesn't mean just going blindly and, just submitting to, anyone. If that sincerity is there, I mean, that universe is inherently intelligent. It will unfold.
Good point. I like that. The universe is inherently intelligent.
Absolutely.
It's a point that I often bring up, or is brought up in these interviews. It's not just sort of a flat, dumb absolute. There's a lively intelligence, grace of God, we might say, kind of orchestrating things.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So so you began your association with Guru Swamiji, and things began to settle down a lot. Let's take it, but that was 10 years ago. So let's take it from there. I mean, what's been happening over the last 10 years?
Oh boy. Oh, and I remember all that. It's like, the last 10 years.
The highlights, or the most significant things.
I'll see what comes forward. Like I say, the phenomena would continue. Kriyas continued chanting, and chanting in Sanskrit, and I mean just songs and visions and all that. But
was it real Sanskrit or something that sounded like Sanskrit? Pardon?
Sanskrit, absolutely. I mean, full Indian songs and all of it.
That you would just spontaneously come out with. Wow.
A flood of it. Words I had no clue about, but yet they were true Sanskrit words. Huh. In other languages too, that one wouldn't even say. I mean, but it's just a flood of it, and that still continues actually. Mm-hmm. That still continues, and it's got its own beauty to it, But when that's taking place, one is lost to it, mostly. I mean, I would say now for sure, but prior to things dropping away this last time, what it does is it breaks down that the mental, I want to say, any of the mental stuff, that individual self, it's just wearing that away in such a mysterious, amazing way, so that's, it's just a wonder is all one can say, but that's what it has been doing for the last 10 years. And, I've been working, so, and I've worked as a hospice nurse for quite a while. But, Guru G was living here off and on for a while. So we would stay in touch and, do satsang and raising my son. And, nothing is just popping out. I'm sorry, but.
No, it's okay. No, if you run out of things to say, I'll have questions. So are you a hospice nurse now still?
No, I'm not. I recently got carpal tunnel, so I am not working right now. So, but I was a hospice nurse for 8 years.
Okay.
Yes, and and in the meantime, fortunately, with the help of again a guru, I was able to navigate through that and work and everything, even with all this 24/7 Kundalini symptoms going on. So that's been a great blessing as well, to have Guruji there, and she's one that. We stay in touch like daily, so it's not something that, how some students may see their teachers once every, I don't know what, but, we've been able to chat almost daily and stay in touch, and it's just been a joy. I mean, it's been a relationship that, again, is one of those mysteries, one of those wonders, and it's very relaxed. I mean, we shop and, have lunch, and it's just regular stuff. It's not... and I guess that's not what people would think it is.
Yeah, it's sort of a personal relationship, a friendship, in addition to being, a student-teacher thing.
Exactly. I mean, there's a deep friendship as well as she is my guru, and there's that respect there. That's the foremost, thing for Guruji. She's my guru, and that, that there's that respect there. But there's also a beautiful friendship that's there as well. Yeah, it's just been the blessing of my life. So,
what did all this Kundalini do to your sleep over the years?
Not so good. Well, it sort of ebbs and flows. Where some nights it's not good, and other nights it would be really deep, and I'd just be so exhausted.
Yeah, because you said 24/7, so it sort of implies that you were getting insomnia, and
Oh no, I mean, just the dreams would continue, vivid dreams, or if one woke up, there might be kriyas or chanting, deep states, certainly all along there's very deep states that are entered that ebb and flow, and samadhi, or then there's mind, as well, and mind gets blown up and exaggerated, and honestly, one thought can just turn into some huge blown up thing, it just blows up everything. It's right in your face nonstop.
Give me an example of a thought becoming a blown up thing.
Boy, it's hard to say. I have to say here what would take place is some of the thoughts would be huge and echoing, and let's say I had this. Now it's just coming where here there'd be maybe the thought of an apple. Well, all of a sudden there'd be visions of all sorts of apples.
Ah.
And then maybe the word apple is echoing in the consciousness for I don't know how long. I mean, these things just vibrate, at least, and again, I can only speak of here that there were so many visions. It was like a kaleidoscope, One thought and boo,
There's this Sanskrit term, Ritambara Pragya, and it's considered to be a sort of well, literally, it means that level of intellect which knows only truth, but it's supposed to be a state in which if you have a thought of something, then that thing manifests, or perhaps only on the mental level, but if you have a thought of an apple, you see the apple, you could taste the apple, smell the apple, and so on. So I wouldn't say that what you were going through was just hallucinatory. It could very well have been and be sort of you're functioning at a deep level in which your thoughts manifest.
Well, yeah, whatever it was, it did feel ungrounding, though. I mean, like I say, I mean, to have that constantly going on is um, very ungrounding. But like I say, with the practices and things that Guruji gives, with the breathing and the, some of the mantras and things, it helps to cut through that and start breaking it up so that one doesn't attach to it or, get thrown off or follow it along. And then you're off on, honestly, who knows, in some fantasy land so quickly and so easily. All I can say is what took place here. The mind would be here and then it would be off in, I don't know, Timbuktu somewhere, that was it just that quickly. So, I mean, the consciousness was so fluid and so easily drifted to every, dimension possible. So, it wasn't by my choice. I know a lot of people, they desire some of these experiences. I have to say I never have, and I've never really enjoyed them. I wish I could. I mean, there were more towards the end, like it's the devotional kriyas and the devotional deep experiences of love and bliss are quite enjoyable. Mm-hmm. But, people can get caught up in that, and I could see why. They're really very, very attractive in the way of, one's feels as if you're losing yourself in it, but yet you're still not totally. There's still that sense of duality, but that love that, just for a tree or a dandelion, I mean, it doesn't matter, a rock, I mean, it's just that gushing river of love and just, it just flows so beautifully. You know that it's not coming from you. Yeah.
That sounds good. So,
yeah.
but it does sound like, as you say, that there was you weren't anchored. You were just sort of flying all over the place without a proper center,
sometimes
without a proper ground.
Yes, I mean, like I say, with Guru, that got more stability. There was the stability of the practices to go to, because before there wasn't. Honestly, I didn't know to follow a thought, to question it. I just didn't know. I think I just was, helpless to being thrown around with whatever mental state came forward, and attaching to it and making it into something that it wasn't, and which it wasn't anything to begin with. So just was making just layers and layers and making it worse, and with the practices and things to go to versus following these things and making getting lost in the Shakti and the creation of mind, one has a center point of relaxing into the heart and coming to the practices, which helps so that you don't get so caught up in that and create more and more and more and more and more endlessly.
Do you want to, or can you say what sort of practices these are?
Yeah, I can. Just some mantras that Guruji gives out. A lot of them are on the internet for just regular the general population, like the Om That I Am is one of them, that when you're looking at an object, one says from the heart, Om That I Am, internally, which what it does is help break down that division of subject-object. Mm-hmm. I am that, I am that, and I am that, and I'm that, and not just, this one separate being. We are everything, and so that is one of them. That is such a simple, potent, effective practice. And then the other is I Am That I Am, which one does just to access the heart center. I am that I am, and just to keep the focus on the heart center. And it breaks down any of the mental stuff that's there and keeps one more grounded and with a focal point versus getting so lost and, in the phenomena or seeking phenomena. I mean, sometimes people don't know that that's not it, but it's not. I'm here to tell you.
Yeah, I think it was Ramana who said that, anything which can sort of come and go is not it, because it is something which always is. It's not it's not a sort of an isolated temporary experience.
Yes, exactly. That's right. And people don't know that, and many times they chase it, and some chase it even when they are instructed it's not the way to go. Well, then that's their journey, and they can chase that until that comes to a dead end, or until they get, conked on the head enough or whatever. That's just it, chasing that really, it's just going to lead to more and more of the same, and that doesn't, that's not peace.
Do you also spend time in actual eyes closed, quiet meditation, or is it more of these mantras that are in something you do in activity?
Well, I don't sit like that was done before. What took place, more the recent awakening that took place, things have really shifted. Probably be good to discuss that. There was an initial falling away. I mean, it just where there was a sense of no me, and Guruji was doing some energy work here, and it broke down a lot of knots in there, and there was a sense that there was no me. But then the consciousness after that, what took place, it waved in and out, where it just felt very fluid, and there were breaks of stillness and things for quite a while, like about 3 years, and it was really quite a profound shift. But what happened, probably, gosh, it may have even, I don't even know how long ago now, maybe even 3 weeks, 2 weeks, I don't know. But, because time just goes.
It was Christmas time.
Thank you so much. It was Christmas. How could I forget that? It was Christmas. I don't even know what day it is today, and that's gone. Mm-hmm. But I was in the bathroom, I believe, and my son was there that day, and that particular day, what I was feeling with him, some of the things with him is normally, I get irritated with him. But this day, anyway, we were in the car, I remember, and driving, and it started feeling like my body was hit, like it was the same body. Like I was him, and I was driving along, and it was such a beautiful experience, which is different sometimes for, a 19-year-old, and he's wonderful, believe me, I enjoy him, but it's more of a mom thing. But this wasn't. This was like we were both one being, and the day just flew so beautifully with him. I mean, we had a wonderful time. I don't know if he felt it, but he lightened up, and it was just such a glorious day, and the whole day I felt, when I was with him, or even that I was just this, it was the same. We were the same, and I have to say, what a different flow that was. But that was, new, and some of that was felt before, but not so substantial like that. And then I was in the bathroom. I mean, off and on, it just came with more and more intensity. But I don't know, doing regular thing, brushing my hair, whatever. But when I walked out of the bathroom, I was just slammed with this non-dual consciousness, this non-dual presence. It was undeniable. It was everything. All of a sudden, it's like I couldn't recognize myself. That's what was taking place. I couldn't recognize who I was before. It started almost like it melts into the whole environment or something, and all of a sudden everything is the same. It's the same. Like that's just the way it was feeling, off and on in waves. It's kind of like like that drop that just falls into the ocean and is lost, and you can't. I mean, how could you find it then, right? I mean, that's what it was feeling like. And honestly, I have to say, here I was trying to pick it up. What is this? But I wasn't able to pick that up. I wasn't able to find who I was before, and that just continued to flow in and out for some days. And because we're our worst enemy, it's frightening. It's kind of like it's not familiar anymore. There's nothing that you can find of your old self anywhere. It just like got pulled away, just all of a sudden just dropped, and then that subject-object feeling was gone, and there's this non-dual pure presence, and which is so incredibly beyond beautiful, and the stillness, and it was like all those things I thought I was just are totally false, 100% false, And this consciousness, this non-dual presence, has continued. There has been still some waving. It takes a while to settle in, but it's one of those things that once it's experienced, it's known that there's just one indivisible self. I mean, it's just one, everything. There's never been separation, and it's absolutely unchanging is, and the ground of being, which is the same for every speck of life. And it just, it just was, I mean, it's just hard to even explain, but that's the reality of it.
So does it seem that, I mean, is it that everything that the senses perceive is seen as that non-dual presence?
Well, it's not about the senses, because it's known that one is not the body and never has been.
But then how is the body regarded? Or if you're eating a piece of toast, I mean, is it sort of that the non-dual field is far removed from all that, or does it somehow engulf it and include it?
No, I mean, what happens is that I, or that one you thought you were, gets swallowed up with this reality. It gets drowned in it, literally. Who you thought you were gets annihilated, is the best way to put it, just destroyed, really, just swallowed in it, and you can't get away from it. But when I say you, it's known that one is not the body, but again, I mean, just as if one is talking to you now, like I'm talking to you now, the body spontaneously moves and things happen on their own without a doer, without a individual in there that thinks it's doing it, which it never is. Because they're never, it's just that pure consciousness, and it's a spontaneous flow of that.
So describe you're sort of doing it, but continue to describe your subjective experience right now, if you will. You're talking to me, or that's the way we would say it in words. You're talking to me, but what is, if try a little bit more to explain what it is to experience life as you're experiencing it right now.
There's probably less words that I could use now than I ever could, because none of them will be it. But again, if one does need to attempt it, I don't mean to use that word one. I can say I, just because that's it. But no I is there in it. But there's just substance, or the ground. So everything that is seen is your very own being, but not in a separate way. I mean, it'd be silly to say, okay, I'm this candle and that's what I am. That's not it. It's uniform. It's kind of like I say, all of a sudden, I don't know, I guess like they say water gets lost in milk or something, that's who you thought you were, and it just gets dissolved. And then there's just that, what remains left over, which is pure being. And so, like I say, that subject-object divide falls, and it's known immediately that what one thought you were before, all these things that you described yourself as, I'm a woman, I'm this, I'm blah, 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 blah. I mean, everyone has their own story, but I'm here to say those aren't true. Those will end. They honestly, because it was funny, because really here I thought that, maybe a certain level had been reached. I knew that thoughts were still there and that kind of thing, but I believe the mantra was going on internally or something, and all of a sudden that just stopped. I mean, dead stopped. That personhood, that individual just, bam, gone. And it was like, oh shit. I mean, literally, it was like your whole world is just gone, and it was like that was never it. That was never true. That's totally false. Because why is it false? Because it just dies, and this body still is here. It's not like the body dies, but that's what death is that ego, and it goes, it's never, and it's always been one. I mean, that ego is a false covering over it, and as one, believes in it, then it's like what you believe in. They say what you believe in, you become. It's true.
Does the ego entirely go, or is it that you just no longer identify with it, but the ego remains a functional tool, just as the senses are tools and the intellect is a tool and so on? Or does the ego really go?
The ego really goes.
So the other things remain. You have senses, you can see, hear, smell, taste, and you have an intellect that can think and so on, or that can decide and discriminate. But the ego, the sense of a personal I who's doing all these things, that goes.
That all goes. I mean, it's not, if one wants to think, you can think, but it's not necessary. Everything is just spontaneous and always has been. And, we want to think that we're special, and that we're going to be the ones being enlightened, or that we have some play in this, some voice in this whole thing. Not to say that people don't have responsibilities. I don't want to go there, because that's another thing, free will. That's, but honestly, the truth is, in realization, I mean, when this I that you thought you were, this person, never truly existed, and never has had any part in what's real, it's just it's mist is really what it is, and it's just, just like if the wise ones say, and the one that has entered realization, there's always been just one. So what is that ego? If it's always been one, well, how could just this one person be separate from that? It's an illusion.
Yeah. I'm always sort of, let me just play devil's advocate a little bit to bring more out. You would acknowledge that there's a plant in back of you, or that there's a lamp in back of you, and so on. I can't see what's in front of you, but there are things. And you would probably say, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the lamp and the plant and so on are essentially, that same being that you know yourself to be. It's all pure presence. It's all being, appearing as a lamp, appearing as a plant, and so on. But am I right so far?
Well, the name and the form of that's just a name, that's not what it is at its essence. So it's like,
what is it at its essence?
It's one. Everything is one. It's all the same.
Right. So that's what I was really saying, is that I use the word being, but it's all one. It's all the same. It's all, there's this sort of, everything is that essence, so to speak.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
But on a practical level, we say there's a plant, there's a lamp. We make dinner. There's zucchinis. There's French fries, or whatever. Even though perhaps predominantly we acknowledge that, it's all that pure essence. It's all being. But on some practical level, we distinguish between things for the sake of being able to function, right?
In terms of the way the language comes out, it would come out with one that's in this pure awareness as, okay, yes, like I'd say, hand me that candle or something, but that is just an outer, that is empty. It's not, doesn't mean that one is separating here from there. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that helps, but it's just an empty, the name and words and these kinds of things are empty. Mm-hmm. So they don't have any, there's no attachment like, well, that is a certain thing or anything within there. There's nothing there. And again, I'm probably just muddling this up and maybe confusing people more, because it's quite difficult to explain, and like if it can be explained, then one is not in that pure consciousness, because it's very difficult. And but I do want to say that things get done, and it's not like one just sits around in some trance or nothing like that. I mean, spontaneously all gets done, and within flow. I know it's very hard to understand that kind of thing, but it can only be known when it's experienced, but please ask more, because I really love to continue to.
No, what you're saying is helpful. I'm just trying to make it as clear as possible, or understand it as clearly as possible, and have you explain it as clearly as possible. So, I guess, the gist of what I've gotten from what you're saying is that, the unity is so predominant that the distinctions are, they're very kind of like superficial attributes that, are there for the sake of being able to talk and interact with people, but they're really very secondary, very superficial. That really, it's the predominant thing is this wholeness, or this being, or unity, or essence, or whatever word you want to use.
Yes, exactly. And just actually that word is perfect, where here there's no distinctions in terms of I can say a certain thing is myself in a separate way, and there's nothing that is distinct from me, which would be this wholeness. It's not like here I am and there's a book, here I am and there's a candle. That goes, that's just the best way to put it. And there's nothing to distinguish yourself from anymore, because that separate being is lost within that reality, just gone. And that's all that is. And like I say here, one can never, like Guruji would say, you will know it when it's entered. And of course at the time I'd be, because I had no clue. And until, like I say, that happened, when it just was there, just revealed itself spontaneously, this non-dual presence, then it's just known undeniably one was never that other thing. Mm-hmm. It was like a dream, or an unreal dream or something, is the best way to put it. And that this is the truth of all beings. And again, to describe it is very, very hard, and yet it doesn't impair regular, ordinary life, friends and whatever people call ordinary life. It just totally, everything is much more, again, I really hesitate to put even one word on it, because I feel like that's makes it into something, and it's not anything, it's nothing, but yet it's totally full.
It seems to me it should enhance ordinary life, not impair it.
Oh my gosh, yes. When the suffering, honestly, you just exist. You exist in this space where you think this is real, the body's real and all these separate things, and this just keep plugging along this way. And honestly, you don't know until it's known, and that really, it's all you. It's all your own very self, and it's just the most precious, gift. There's nothing more precious, and that's true of all. Like I say, if I can look at someone, I don't think, okay, they're in some certain place and I'm in another place. There's nothing that's high or low. It's like all are always been free, and it's not a, this person is only here and I'm here. It's that all goes. It's amazing how the mind is the only thing that creates the world and the separation. And honestly, it creates a fantasy, a fictitious person. But if you look at that person, it's never the same. I could even say it's one individual person when it's always changing, So all these things were looked at, But, you know, honestly, it's taken away by grace. It's not anything in your power that you can do to, you know, attain, because there's nothing to attain. It's just pulled away. Thank God. And it's like your clothing or something that you wore that you thought was you the whole time, a certain red dress and then a green one and then, you know, something for your moods. And all of a sudden you just think you're this, and then that's pulled away. And the truth of who you are and who all, you know, all beings are is revealed.
I don't know if this is a significant point, but this is what I was trying to get at a minute ago. If, you know, everything is predominantly being, let's just use the word being, or we can use wholeness, I don't care what word we use. Let's say being for the sake of simplicity. And so, you know, when you look at the candle, it's predominantly being. It's but then, you know, on a sort of a superficial level, or kind of the level of appearance, it's a candle. Is my terminology correct so far? Am I making sense? I just want to make sure I'm sort of in line with the way you would say it.
You know, I just, like I say, that the name part is what doesn't.
But I mean, if your son comes in the room and says, "Hey, Mom, you know, pass the candle," then you know what he's talking about. You don't hand him the scissors. You hand him the candle.
A candle, it would be handed to him. Yes.
Yeah. So there's a sort of on some level or other, there's something. You know, the candle has some level of reality, even though it may be, John, just the crust of the surface and predominantly its being, but there's some recognition, okay, this is the candle, this is the table, this is the lamp, and so on. There's some recognition still of diversity, without which it wouldn't be possible to function.
Well, you know, mostly what it is within the intelligence, like we talked about, that inherent intelligence in the universe, and that's what remains, and that's what is the doer. So that's what reaches for the candle. But that's the best way for me to put it, is that that intelligence is there. I mean, we try to make it into our intelligence, but it's not, and that's what it does it. So,
no, it'd be like the waves saying, "This is my ocean."
Yeah. Perfect. You know, you're kind of frozen up, freeze frame on your screen.
Don't worry about it. It's okay. So what I'm leading to is just as there's sort of so it's that intelligence which is governing the whole universe, which moves the candle or cooks the dinner or drives the car or whatever, and that's the orientation from which you're experiencing, from which life is being lived. But just as there are these, you know, appearances of candles and cars and plants, and with regard to our individual structure, such as it may appear to be, there are individual faculties: sight, hearing, smell, taste. It seems to me that there's some remnant of individual of sort of identity. I mean, if you're in a room with several people and someone calls you by name, you turn your head. They don't. Even if it were a whole room full of people who were in this enlightened state, you know, and we called one of them by name, that one would turn the head, because there's still some sort of remnant, it seems, of, you know, of personality, of identity, of you know, conditioning. Everything you've learned in your life is there. If you knew how to play a musical instrument, you'd still know how to play it. So I mean, there's something inherent in the individual structure which is not lost, even though this sense of sort of, you know, constraint or is lost. You know.
Yes, well, that's the great mystery of it. You know, that continues to play out, that personality, and but you know, one isn't that, and it's known that, you know, it's just, that's not who you are, but it just kind of like, I guess maybe a wave is set in motion. It continues until it totally evaporates, but that's just surface. That's not the ocean. You know, that's more what the personality, and it's like that. I mean, it's like just a playing out that, and it's a mystery. You know, again, you know, a lot of things can take place if someone's is deeply intelligent when one doesn't have even their own sight or their own hearing. You know, there's still an amazing amount of creativity and intelligence within that one. So, you know, it's not the senses. It just isn't. And honestly, that comes from a deeper place, another place. And you know, that's the truth of it. But like I say, I mean, really, when that mind falls, that mystery is entered, and it's just let be. It's not try even what. There's no need to understand it. There's no understanding. It's beyond understanding, and that's just what remains. So
Yeah.
one can't say why the head is turned. You know, it's just, it's one of those things. It's kind of like, why does an apple fall from a tree? Why does a plant grow? Why does the sun come up every morning? And all of these amazing things that we think we know when they just happen.
I guess mystery is a good word. It's I don't know why this point fascinates me, but I do find it fascinating that one can sort of shift identity and really be the ocean, and yet in some sense there's still identification with a particular wave. It's like we're all you know, that oceanic intelligence, and yet, you know, you in Seattle are seeing certain things through your eyes. I in Iowa am seeing certain things through my eyes. You can't see through my eyes or through my cat's eyes or something like that. There's still a sort of a kind of a channeling or an individuation in a sense, while at the same time the primary identity may be unbounded or universal.
Isn't it a wonder, though?
Yeah.
That's all that one can say. You know, it really is a great, great wonder and mystery how that. But you know, it's kind of like, you know, the birth of that body. You know, it comes, and then there's that attachment, and for whatever reason, you know, that falls away, and you know, that individuality. I mean, but the body goes on, and it's a wonder, and a wonder how that can even fall away, and it's a wonder that the ego could even be. I mean, these things are all a great, great mystery, and that's all that one can say. But like I say, the only thing that can truly be known is what is changeless and timeless, and the true self, and that's what really can be known, because it's eternal. But the rest is grasped at, and then it's lost, you know. So the other is not lasting, and it's you know, it comes and goes. And so, like I say, there's really nothing that can truly be known in that type of objective knowledge, you know, because it does change and shift, and first one thinks they got it, and then they don't, and they, you know, add something else. And this is the only thing that I have to say that truly, undoubtedly can be known is this eternal self.
Do you have any sense whatsoever of, you know, what happens when the body dies in this state, or is that also unknowable?
It is. I would say it is a mystery, and you know, I just want to say that, you know, well, this is. It just seems like this moment, you know, this is it, and whether the body's here or not, that's what the body never brought it about. So, you know, it's gonna remain whether the body's here or not, in whatever state the body's in. And you know, there were times on the journey when I was so floored by the ego. I just what it is, you know, how I could think that I was something or this or that. I tell you, when that's washed away, you know, it just is the most relief, and to be out of that, it just, again, no words can say. I mean, there was just tears that keep flooding at the absolute joy and wonder of that ever even, this just going as it is. And,
When you say floored by the ego, do you mean you were sort of flabbergasted that the ego could have predominated for so long, and that you had been so convinced by the the Maya, so to speak? Is that what floored you?
Well, just at times at what it is, its sense of thinking it's something special and different and better or worse or whatever story, it'll hit you. I mean, there's a lot of times when it'll just like a punch in the gut of, oh my God, this is really what I was thinking or caught up in. God, and then, it just falls and it just, there's bumpy times like that. And, and the ego, I tell you, and again, this isn't, and when I say ego, I want to say attachment to mind and body. I'm not here to say it's, one thinks they're the mind and the body. That's the ego, but, it's
so that's how you would define ego? Is the misperception or the misapprehension that one is the mind and body?
Yes, that the body is the self, the body is who and what I am, and this mind is who and what I am. That's the ego, yes. And, that's not to say, again, it's not saying that it's just, someone that thinks they're great or something. That's not it. An ego is an ego, it's just...
Yeah. That's an interesting definition. I was just reading some quotes today that somebody sent me about... someone asked the question of someone, can gurus suffer? And so there was this whole explanation about Ramana Maharshi dying of cancer and, screaming and moaning, and then his disciples would say, what's going on? Why are you in so much pain? He'd say, I'm not in pain. I mean, the body's going through this, but I'm far removed from that. I don't take myself to be the body.
Well, exactly. And that's the thing here. I mean, before, when there was pain in the body, there's a sense of that's my arm and it's hurting or something. What can I do to get out of it? But, when those are not the body, even if the body is going through its changes, there's no suffering. I mean, it's the mind that suffers because it attaches to that and wants to try to find a way out of it. But, and again, this has only been experienced in the last, like I say, however long it's been, a few weeks where, because there's pain, quite a bit of pain here with the body at times, but
because of the carpal tunnel.
Yes, that exactly.
Yeah. So let's take that as a case in point. How has your experience of life with carpal tunnel syndrome changed in the last few weeks?
Like I say, I mean, with the pure consciousness and this peace that has entered in, it's not to say that one doesn't feel that pain because it's there, but it's not like a one-pointed focus on it. It's just I just have to say there's no suffering with this. Suffering is of mind. Not to say that one won't hurt the body. There's not going to be pain. I mean, certainly if someone gets a cut or, it's not going to sit there and, I don't feel that. It's not that way at all.
You feel it, sure.
Oh, yes. But
well, the hip modern Advaita question would be, well, who feels that pain?
Yes. Well, again, it's like I just say, it's just a sensation. It's more an empty sensation, without a person that's attaching to it with all this mental drama around it. Because when one's in a body, that they're still gonna. It's not like there are different ones that are realized that don't have body consciousness. They might be there and they need to be fed or this kind of thing. And then there's ones that are fully functional. And that's why I know people get freaked out. Oh my God, and I did too. I used to go through all of this stuff. Won't be able to take care of my son. I recognize him. Is he gonna have to feed me? Honestly, just stupid stuff, and it's just so invalid. And because the ones that do have that, I don't know if it's a Videha Mukta, but the ones that are lost the body consciousness, where they do have their needs taken care of, then that's perfect for the devotees that are there. It's like just right for that situation. Everything is just right in that way. It's like the ones that are functional are meant for, then it comes around where that's just right for that situation. So it's just like, I think if people trust and know that, these things unfold and when the conditions are right in the right way. And, but, everything, I mean, it's such a radically different reality. One can't, those things that used to be a big deal just go because they don't have that any validity to them like they used to.
It's good to learn. It's good to keep trying to describe it like this, though. I think it kind of, it helps you develop as a teacher, right? And I mean, as I understand it, you are supposed to be Swamiji's successor, which is kind of scary. I mean, she's younger than I am, and I don't have a successor, but I plan to be around for a while. But I guess she's grooming you as someone who is best qualified among her students to carry on the lineage.
Yes, and this was way back when I took Diksha, maybe even about 8 years ago. And again, not anything that one seeks, not anything that one is looking for. It just came, and it was, accepted for what it is. But, that's the thing. Like, if someone's looking to be a guru or looking for that label, that's a whole nother thing. With this, it just comes, unsought.
Have you actually been working with students yourself?
Oh, with Guruji, I mean, in Flow, and we have the online ashram, so just, help to answer posts on there, or with satsang with Guruji, or whatever comes forward, and we're hoping that, more and more can, but right now since we're an online ashram, it's a bit of a situation where we do a lot of stuff online as much as possible, but right now, Guruji, I have to say, does the 24/7 guru-ness, and yes, she does. She does. He's the one that does that. So I don't want to. I've probably done, a grain of sand compared to her with all the sand on the beach. I mean, so that's just the truth of it. And but whatever happens, it will take place, and that's okay. So
do you feel like the dust has really settled now for the last few weeks? I mean, is there any sort of indication that things might stir up again? You did mention earlier that Kriyas were still going on and stuff like that. Do you expect that to has that completely gone away for Swamiji, or does she still do that kind of stuff once in a while?
Well, she said that it took her about 5 years after for that to settle down. And here, the Kriyas are still going, they're still flowing. There are still some thoughts that rise and fall at times. That just, I guess it's kind of like the embers, or still some embers there or something that are still fizzling out. But, and there is, the chanting, there's still some of that. This has been years, but with it now, I mean, it just is empty, and it's in its natural, spontaneous flow. It's not a hindrance or, something that one can say is a separate, like there's some separate journey now, or a seeker that's looking for an end, or that's gone, and thank God, and because that's been years in coming. So there is still some dust that's settling. And, however long that plays out again, kind of like that wave thing and that personality, everything has its own playing out. And here it could be, just more of the Kriyas just sort of having their play right now. And they'll eventually, dissolve like everything else. When, who knows, and it doesn't matter at all. So, yeah, well, who can say, Who can say? It's not anything that those have been ongoing for so long. It's just, I'm not quite sure why, but they're still playing out. So.
But you really feel like you've crossed the threshold now, as of 3 weeks ago, that
Yes.
there's no turning back as far as you can tell.
Yes, that is exactly the way it feels. Like I say, with this non-dual, once that's known and once that's entered into, certainly if there's some thoughts still in place, then there is that possibility. I mean, it's like a seed that could bloom again and cover over, include that pure being. That's why, the main thing is just to really relax and abide in that self without, moving away from it, and the more and more that gets relaxed into and settled into, then the thoughts continue to fizzle out. But with some it just blows out, and with others it takes some time to settle in. I mean, even in the writing, the scriptures, it says that it does take a while to totally settle into. But it's just a matter of really just relaxing into it, and just and that does take, it's just such a starkly new reality, and that so it'll take some time, but it definitely, the threshold was crossed over, and it's totally like seeing that that is known, that non-dual presence, that's what's the reality, that's what remains.
It's interesting that you use the word known, because as someone put it, you can, something that you experience, you can lose the experience, because experiences by definition come and go. But once you know something, it's hard to unknow it, and the sense in which you're using the word known is, it's not like something that you knew when you were studying a course in high school that you may forget. It's a deeper kind of knowing that can't really be unknown.
That's perfectly put. Where it's just one of those things that once it's entered, it's beyond doubt, and that's all that one can say. And that this is who and what you are, without a mental dialogue there. It's just I guess knowing is being. One actually becomes that. When all that tarnish is removed, that's what remains, and that's just known, undoubtedly. That's the truth, and not just as when that individual self goes, and that's the reality that's always been present and is true for all beings. So it's known. It is the best way to put it, because you're right. I mean, experiences do come and go. Because then there's someone experiencing it, there's a separate one experiencing it, and that's an entirely different thing.
Yeah, and even if there weren't, I mean, there might be a spiritual experience one could have, like, I don't know, seeing auras or angels or something like that, but, that's something which is in the temporal field, and it's, it may be happening now, it might not be happening tomorrow, but the sort of the substratum of all that, this essence or being or presence or whatever you want to call it, that has a sort of an ongoing, eternal, stable quality to it.
Exactly, which is so different than anything you've ever experienced before. That's the thing. I mean, it just, once that movement of mind is going, and once it just gets, just dissolved, just bam, like that, and it's just, that's what remains, and it can't not be. That's what's there under all that for all. So, that's all that one can say, just speaking from the I want to say the experience of the no experience here, when that fell away. And it's not like you can't seek it, because you honestly don't know. It's not even in your awareness necessarily that, that's what the true reality is. It just, all of a sudden, it just is there. And one can't get away from it, one can't deny it, one can't, it's all that's seen. Within, there's no within, no without, or if you want to say it's within and without, or there's, both of those go, and so that's, that's it. I don't know,
Well, you can't seek it, but in fact, that's what you had been seeking all this time.
It's the paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the paradox. Yes, there is a journey, and one does need to make efforts, but it's not by your own doing that it's revealed. It's revealed by grace, when all that doership and all of that seeking dissolves. Yeah.
That's a good point. There are a lot of teachers these days who just say, stop seeking, give up the search, and then you'll be there. But I think there's a time and place for that, and it can be, that advice can be very premature for many people.
Exactly. Exactly, exactly, because there are efforts that need to be made. Otherwise, honestly, those vasanas, those tendencies, all of that is so potent, so strong, such a pull that one needs, another stronger force to pull it away, which would be practices or, the guru. And what do they say? That's what makes the elephant ego tremble and fall to its knees. It needs another, you know, um, one that rests in that pure consciousness. And that's, like I say, that mind is a tiger, and it's a big thing. It just whirls and goes, and honestly, when you think you're out of it, you're not most of the time. And you think you got it and you don't, and on it, it's just it's quite a monster, and the best way to put it here. But so it needs something to make it drop to its knees and tremble, and
And like the saying goes, it takes a thorn to remove a thorn. So, I mean, ultimately, practices and techniques and all this may be absurd from the level of having gone beyond the need for them, but until that level has been reached, they're not absurd. They're very relevant.
absolutely, absolutely. Oh my gosh! And again, I can only say here that if those practices weren't there, and the pure consciousness, the transmission, really for here, I have to say the transmission was the practices, yes, absolutely needed, because in your regular daily day-to-day stuff that's needed, but the transmission was that's what cuts through anything that any doership, um, anything. Even the practices eventually need to go because they're within doership. So but that transmission cuts through any of that. It just all of a sudden you'll just be walking and, like I say, with Guruji or something, all of a sudden, you're thinking and all this stuff, and then boom, the mind's still when you walk into her presence. It's like, okay, this is different. And like I say, it's just until that's experienced, and it's like, okay, now you can see where you're going towards, and that's where, it's really the transmission is the biggest, and it can come at the most damnedest times. You have no idea when, or the mind can drop it. I mean, you could be doing anything, literally. Like I say here, a few times it was on the toilet, on the phone, just.
So the transmission, you're referring specifically to, with Guruji, the transmission, but are you suggesting that can also be long distance? There doesn't need to be the physical proximity for the transmission to take place?
Absolutely. And here it was just when that heart opens up with Guruji, certainly this wasn't at first, this took a while, but when the heart opens, the transmission was felt with, bhajans or reading a book. I mean, some very, I've had some odd kriyas with just reading books, like the book would go right to the top of the head, and just that was the way it was absorbed, apparently. But so it's like, okay, I did set out to read this thing, now it's sitting on my head. Okay, and I couldn't, not have it be, and all of a sudden with it on the head, like Ramana's book, samadhi. It's just the most blissful, way better than reading the words. So again, the experience is much more worthwhile, and yes, transmission, and once that heart opens, like I say, it can be felt with certain books or anything spiritual can start entering in that way, because the mind begins to bend towards that as it becomes more.
So you're saying that the transmission is not necessarily exclusively with your guru. You're saying that the transmission can be from being itself or something.
Well, yes. Oh, sure. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Feel bliss by looking at but like I say, with here,
for you, yeah,
the guru is the one that set that in motion, and
right.
Then life begins to be opened up to, and these things begin to enter in. I mean, it wouldn't have taken place, and again, I can speak of here without the guru. That is the one that brought that, set that in motion, and then these things begin to enter in, and they're felt and vibrated in the heart. I mean, just even like a tree or something that maybe would not have been, felt that way before. It would have felt more like a solid, separate thing, but it starts really begin to vibrating within yourself, and such beauty, and again, I can just speak from here when that heart opened, then even different books that were read, or that were in line with ones from the path, or, not even that, just looking at a tree or whatever. These things really begin to resonate in the heart and bring bliss and beauty, and because it takes place because there's nothing separate from you. And that's when these barriers break down and these things begin to enter in, and pretty soon they fall away, and well, that is your being. That's why, because you're never separate from it. And it's just such a beautiful thing. It's just so rich and so absolutely mysterious. And, again, I can't even speak about it in words hardly that would even
Do
touch
justice.
it.
Yeah.
Justice, yes.
So are you indicating that as a result of or since this shift that took place a few weeks ago, there's been more of a blossoming of the heart now? Is that what you're saying?
It seems like that has always been there, but when one knows it's your own being, it is more of a, there's just no separation from it, yes. I mean, it can get more beautiful than that. There's no way, and it's all heart then. That's what pure consciousness is heart.
I was just wondering whether you've found yourself becoming more devotional or something since this shift.
There were some. It was interesting that you mentioned that, because there were a few days, and it's been probably about 3 or 4 days of, and again, it was felt to be empty, but just, a lot of some more devotional kriyas, I was telling Guruji too, and sobbing, and how you feel when that devotee has just lost themselves in what they are devoted to, that falls away, and it's unreal. I hadn't experienced that before, but everything I've read about it, it is true. Now I have, that bliss and that absolute, it's just, beyond words, bliss and beauty is just brings one to tears,
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, but I have a suspicion that perhaps ripening of more and more and more profound degrees of devotion will characterize your path in the coming years. But I'm not really speaking from any sort of profound philosophical or spiritual insight. I just have a hunch that that might be what happens. But we'll see, huh?
We'll see. Who knows?
Yeah. Good. Well, we've been going on for almost 2 hours. I suppose we ought to wrap it up.
Hours?
I think so, yeah.
My God. Okay.
Just about. Is there anything that you'd like to say by way of conclusion? That perhaps anything we haven't covered, or anything whatsoever?
I really just want to encourage people to continue. No matter what the experience, no matter how beautiful, no matter how attractive, or no matter how horrid, just keep going if the heart is there to be free, because truly that's your right, your birthright. Is everything that you've read and all that is true, that that's your birthright to have freedom, and it's there when all of this other stuff you think you are falls away. And to not be afraid to open up to gurus and teachers, and I'm not advocating one over the other, but certainly, beware of the ones that are, it's not sincere and take advantage. That's another deal. But, keep going, please. I just, again, when one enters this, it's their whole world too. If there's no world left, but what it is to see others come to freedom, those ones that are sincere, and it doesn't, in whatever way, and to just say, yes, it is there. All that one's read about, I just want to encourage that. So. Yeah,
that's good. I received an email from a guy recently who said that he's a very spiritual seeker, and ardent seeker and everything, obviously, but he said his life has just been hell, and he's been living in hell for so long. And I said, well, all things must pass, and if you just have to persevere, and the time will come when that's not your experience anymore. But you can't be. Just don't give up, like you're saying.
That's all you can say. And if you start opening up, then these things unfold. They will, your next step will come. And even though you don't in your head think so, it's there. It really is. It's beneath you. It's the substratum of who you are. It's pure intelligence, and it's wanting to move. Its nature is to move one towards the center of your being. And if you can follow it and to trust it and work in harmony with it, that's what will eventually happen. And it's for every sincere one, for sure.
Yeah, I was listening to Byron Katie the other day, and she was saying it's a friendly universe, and that might seem strange to someone who is going through all kinds of terrible stuff. But I think what she was saying is what you're saying, is that there is this sort of guiding intelligence that underlies or supports everything. And sometimes the mother is washing the child, and the child is feeling discomfort and squirming and screaming and doesn't want it to happen, but the child's going to come out better for it.
Exactly. It's not what you want. You're going to get what you need, and that's an entirely different thing. And what you get is what's best for you and your progress, which is not always what you want.
Yeah,
but
like the Rolling Stones sang.
Exactly. And thank goodness it ends up being, at the time you didn't know it, but once it turns that corner, you're like, thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a good note to end on, is a word of encouragement for people to just, carry on. And, everyone has their own path, and some might seem quick and some might seem slow, but you never know. You never know when the final kind of cloud is going to end, or dissipate. Yeah. Could be tomorrow.
Yes, could be your next breath. Perfectly put. Yes. So.
Good. Well, thanks. So this has been good. We'll do it again sometime.
Oh, I'd love to.
Yeah. So I've been speaking with Siddhananda on episode number 55, I believe, of Buddha at the Gas Pump. There's a new one of these interviews every week, and so if you go to batgap.com, BATGAP, you'll see them all archived, and new ones will come along. And I'm going to be putting a sign-up thing on there so people can sign up to be notified by email of new ones. But if in the meanwhile, before that, if you just want to email me at rick@batgap.com, I'll put you on an email list. So thank you, Siddhananda.
Thank you so much.
Namaste.
Namaste.